Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome to another session for Don't Go Broke Collective. This is one of our bonus sessions for the month. And we are talking, I know this month we have been talking about a variety of topics. We've been talking about investing, we're talking about career growth, but now we have a bonus session talking all about the difference between renting versus owning. So I want you guys to listen during the session and get all your questions out because Richard has a lot of insight for all of us. Richard is the broker, partner, and group lead at Roar Group, which is an EXP Realty, which is under EXP Realty Brokerage. And he is going to share a lot of details with us about the core differences between renting versus owning and showing us the pros and cons of each. Everyone who knows me knows I do own a house, but I am pro like how buying a house isn't the end all be all, basically. So I think everybody should make informed decisions before they ever buy a house because it is an expensive venture to go into, especially if you're not well prepared. So that's what we're going to be talking about during this session. And he's also just going to show the strategic steps that you need to help you prepare for home ownership if that is the path that you want to take and some of the common mistakes that you should avoid. So again, I want you all to get your questions ready. He will be answering them at the end. And you can always just leave them in the comments as well, so that I will make sure to ask him them at the end of the session. So can we all welcome Richard in the chat? And Richard, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that, Rainy. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having you join. It's a pleasure to be here to present to you guys today. Like Rainy said, real estate is actually a very complex topic, right? It's quite complex, and my goal today is to demystify the process. So you're able to, at the end of it, you are informed and be able to make informed decision. And also to emphasize that renting is not a bad thing. It's a good option. You can rent and invest in something else, but you can also rent and invest in real estate. But everyone's situation is different, hence why we're having this conversation today. My name is Richard Oyekunle. I'm a team lead of a group, and we partner with EXP. I've been an industry licensed broker for almost 10 years. And our primary focus is helping first-time home buyers, right? And helping them to make an informed decision when they get in, because that is the crucial part when you're getting into real estate investing. So I'll go into the slide, but please, the best part of this presentation is you asking questions, right? These are my own slides, but I want to take on your questions and see how we can drive the conversation forward from there. And I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people. Yeah, so yeah, this is me. I already mentioned about myself, so I'll just dive right into it. This is the team that we work together. Uh, I'll be touching on mortgage part, but by no means am I a licensed mortgage broker. But I'll be speaking about mortgages based on my knowledge, and I will invite you to also take, speak to engage a mortgage specialist if that conversation is something you want to have. We have a mortgage specialist in our team. She's a mortgage specialist with BMO. She helps our client to stay competitive when it comes to rate and the options they have in the market. We have our own real estate lawyer. We have buyer agent, sellers agent. But all of this will make more sense to you once I dive into the presentation today. Maybe like most people on this webinar today, I'm also an immigrant to Canada. And when we got here, we just have to find a clear roadmap on how to structure our life. But real estate could be one, or understanding not rushing into real estate can also be one, right? So, and that is the path that a lot of us are taking, and I know a lot of people will be taking in the nearest future. Now, what are we going to cover today? The realities of renting, the truth about ownership, how to know if you're ready, right? Renting strategically, common first-time home buyer mistakes, hidden costs that a lot of people don't know, which tend to give bad real estate experience because they were not well informed. They don't understand every cost that goes into home ownership, because it's not only about down payment and you having a good income. And also, I have a case study of a property on the market for a purchase price of about 550. We'll go into the numbers in details of how much it's going to cost you and what are those hidden costs, right? You need to be aware of so you can project that into your future plans if you're planning to buy real estate. And also how to build your buying plan from 12 months to 36 months. And also we take the question and answer at the end of it. Okay, the realities of renting. Renting is actually a good start. It's actually a very good start. It has its own advantages, a lot of advantages, as a matter of fact. And I did mention earlier too, there are a lot of investors today that have invested in real estate and they are still renting. I'm actually really happy that Rennie is one of them. She's she owns property, and she doesn't live there. And that can actually be an important decision for people that want to invest in real estate. So you are not compelled to change your lifestyle or change your location because you want to own real estate, or have to obstruct your your pattern just because you want to own. And one of the major advantages of renting is the flexibility to move, right? When you own real estate, uh, in Canada, over 70% of people have mortgages on the property. So it's not that easy to keep selling and selling and selling and discharging those mortgages to move every year or every 2 years. So because of that, when you own your primary home, it's not as flexible to always move, right? And when you're renting, it's fewer upfront costs. You're paying less money. When you're renting, you're probably starting with your first and last. When you're buying real estate, you need the down payment, which could be a lot of money, right? Lower maintenance responsibility because landlords have their own share responsibility when they rent out their property. But the cons of that is you're not building equity. But not building equity is if you don't have any other property that you own, raising rental cost because you're renting from a landlord, unless you're within the property you're renting is within the regulation of rent increase, your landlord can increase their rent on you, and lack of control of your living space. When we're drafting lease document, there are always clauses and conditions or to the extent of what upgrades and modifications you can do in a rental property. So that could be another cons too. Now, you don't have to live where you own, and you don't have to own where you live. What that means is, and I'll just paint a picture in your mind. You walk downtown Toronto, right? And it makes all the sense for you because it's close to where you work. Now, you decide to approach your bank to get a mortgage pre-approval, and you get to know that based on your income and your down payment that you have, you only qualify for a property at $450,000. You check all around Toronto, there's nowhere you could get a property that you like for that. That doesn't mean you have to wait 10 years until you can afford to leave to buy in Toronto, right? Or 5 years, or whatever time it takes you to be able to afford where you work. Because you don't want to be far to work, or for whatever reason you're close to family and that is where you want to stay, but it's just expensive in Richmond Hill, or it's just expensive in Oakville. It doesn't mean you have to wait. You can invest somewhere else where you can afford. And that's pure affordability there, right? You're buying where you can afford, and you know that, okay, you can put in a tenant that pays your mortgage or pays more than what your monthly mortgage, or maybe slightly less, whatever that looks like. So you don't have to own where you live, and you don't need to own where uh, you don't need to own where you live, basically. And I have some numbers there. If we get into the numbers, being a landlord brings more value, right? Strong rental income, lower mortgage as well, because now you're buying where you can afford, and someone is paying the rent which you're using to offset the mortgage. So, for example, you're renting in Toronto for 2.4, but owning in Toronto maybe to cost you 3,500. That's a big upgrade in price. That's 1,100. But you might not be ready for that because there are some other things that comes with when you own a property. But if the same qualification you have will buy you a property outside of Ontario or maybe in Calgary, and your mortgage is 1,800 and you have a tenant that will pay you 2,200, that might be a better option for you because now you have $400 cash flow, which you won't get if you buy where you live. But the good thing about real estate is if you own such property, few years down the line, if things changes and you want to still buy, right? Now you have a property that you can tap into the equity, or you can sell and move all your down payment and the equity you've built over time. And that time, then move it to where you can actually afford the price. Because the risk there is if you continue to wait, prices do go up, but in the last 3 years, yes, price hasn't gone up because of what is happening in the market. But a standard market, we expect the market to go up in Ontario at least 4 to 5%, right? So it's always advisable to put your money, invest where you can invest. It doesn't necessarily have to be real estate. It could be any other business venture that you're confident that you're going to make money But if you've identified real estate to be one of them, maybe you just need to try another market, another real estate market to buy what you can afford. Now, while you're now renting, whether you're renting currently because you're saving to buy or because you want to purchase elsewhere and you want to continue to rent, there are ways that you can still make your renting journey count, right? So you're not just renting, and yes, you must have heard, oh, over 5 years, you're going to pay $150,000, right, as rent, and nothing is coming back to you. But there are ways you can do it strategically too to make it count for you, right? When you're getting two leases, you want to make sure that you can negotiate longer leases so you can get lower price. We have a lot of landlords now in Toronto that are desperate to rent out their units because they're sitting there pretty vacant. You can negotiate, okay, instead of signing 1 year, but you have to be sure, right, that you're going to live there long term. You can negotiate 2, 3 years and reduce the price of the lease. Okay, because if you're able to save $200, $100 that way, in 1 year, that's about 2,400. Imagine that in 2 years, in 3 years. I think that is something that you can also invest somewhere else, right? You can use your rent to improve your credit. Okay, with this website, it costs $25 one-time payment. What happens is when you make your rent payment every month, they have a system that eats your credit and say, oh, you've been paying your monthly rent, and that will help you to build your credit. What that saves you from is it saves you from having to own multiple credit cards just because you want to build your credit, right? Because you're going to pay your rent anyways. So you might as well just make it count for you. Save intentionally. I'm sure Rennie must have covered this on a platform. You can automate, savings just to help. So when your income comes in, it just goes out automatically to savings or where you want to invest it. So you don't have to do it manually. I think that encourages you actually in saving more. Take up side also or freelance work. These are just the advice that we give to our clients to help them to make more money and be able to save more. And most importantly, reduce your debt. I think reducing your debt is, on a general scheme of things, is really important. But when you plan to buy real estate as well, it's really important because there's something they call loan to debt ratio, which means if Ade makes $100,000 and Bingpe makes or John makes 80,000, if Ade has a car loan of 70K and the other person doesn't have any car loan, even though he earns less more than the other person, he or she will qualify more than the person with each car loan or each credit card debt. So it's always important for you to keep your debt really low because it will eat into your income for you to qualify for it, but for what you're going to qualify for in terms of the when you're getting a mortgage. So while you're renting, just make sure that you're taking advantage of that to reduce your debt and save as much as possible. Now, the truth about owning, we've touched on renting. The truth about owning is, yes, it helps you to build equity and have a net worth. Net worth means when you own a property and you build equity, maybe the bank will see you differently and they'll be able to give you more credit. More credit is good, but if you use it really rightly, right? We've seen a lot of people that because of that, they've exposed themselves because they've had access to credit, not knowing that when you take that money, it means that you're dipping hands into the equity of your home that you've been saving over time. So it depends on what you use those funds for. If you're reinvesting it to what investment that will pay you more than just letting it sit in your house. So you definitely something to check in with a financial planner and your investment person. Second thing is big upfront cost is one of the cons. Yes, you need at minimum 5% down payment when you're buying a home in Canada. Now, I've had cases where people they earn a particular amount and they want to buy a home of X amount, let's say 700,000, and they say, oh, but Richard, I just have to come up with 5%. No, each down payment percentage depends on your income, right? So if you make 100,000, and spare me, I'd say 100,000 a lot because it's just a round figure that I can throw out there. So if you make $100,000 and the bank says you qualify for at 5%, I think right now with 100,000 at 5%, you probably qualify for around $550,000. If you want to buy a house of 700,000, that down payment of 5% will have to change because you have to cover the difference, right? So in that case, your down payment will jump from what should be $30,000, it could jump to 100 and something thousand dollars because you now have to cover the difference from 550 to 700, which is $150,000. Okay, so the rule of thumb of 5% does not apply to everyone, every situation. It all depends on your purchase price and your income. So it could be a lot of money, it could be 30,000 and it could be as low as 20,000 for some people because they're buying $400,000 and they qualify for it. And some people might still want to buy the same $400,000, but because of their income, they have to come out with 10%. So it could be $40,000 for them. But that's something the mortgage broker will be able to explain to you. And the stability and control, yes, when you own real estate, you have control. You pay for that control anyway. So you have control. It's your home. You can stay there for as long as you want, provided you're paying your mortgage. And next one is responsibility and maintenance. It's on you. Now there's no landlord to call on because you own the property. You have to manage the lawn. You have to make sure that the furnace and the AC, everything is in good working condition because when you don't do that, it just costs you more for you to maintain them, right? Then another advantage is the tax benefit. When you own real estate, there are more things to write off, right? Because you own it and you're paying your mortgage. So you can write off depreciation, you can write off if you use your home, your tax, your property tax. There are a lot of things you can write off basically. And um, again, it varies by countries, and I understand that not everybody here is not from Canada, so it varies by country. You definitely need to check with your accountant. And another cons we have already touched on is the less flexibility. So owning real estate has a lot of advantages and also disadvantages. And with this, you'll be able to now bridge it. Okay, can I deal with this? Is it just better for me to rent and become a landlord elsewhere? Or do I want to own where I live and take on these responsibilities? Now, when do you know if it's the right time to buy? Majority of the cases we have in the industry today or we have in the country today is actually because people don't take this crucial part really serious, which is the preparation, right? A lot of time people, because of emotions and because it's a lot of people are doing it. And the risk about that is other friends and family that are buying real estate, some of them they've started their planning like 2, 3 years before. But because they purchased real estate, they just want to jump on it and say, okay, now I'm ready to. Well, we earn the same income anyways. So if this person can buy real estate, then I want to buy it right away too. The preparation part is the most crucial because there are some other things you need to put into consideration. Number one, you have to make sure that your credit is good. The average credit to get a good rate now to go to get mortgage from the A banks, which are the major banks and some mortgage banks that give competitive rates, is 680 points beacon. So you want to stay from 680 upward. In some cases, if there are two people on the application and one person has like over 700 and the other person is about 650, they might give exception to that. But if you're going to be a solo applicant, the benchmark is 680. So you need to keep that up. It's part of preparation. You need emergency funds because once you get the mortgage, banks don't give leeway of, oh, I just got laid off. I need to wait to get another job. Now, can you give me three months to find another job so I can continue my mortgage payment? Unfortunately, that doesn't happen with banks, right? They expect you to have emergency funds. So when something happens that you can't fulfill your monthly obligation, at least you can dip hand into those funds and be able to mitigate to cover the wait time so you can start continue to pay that. Because at the end of the day, the money bank gives you to purchase those are all our money that we put in the account, right? So they have the obligation to be able to give the money back to us when people want to withdraw the money. So they won't be able to do that. Saving for down payment and closing cost. I'm going to touch on closing cost in later slides. Yes, if you're buying, it's not just because, oh, I made this certain amount of money. You need to save over time for down payment and closing cost. And the fourth one is emotionally ready for the commitment because we have all the things going on in our life. We want to go on vacation. We have our needs and wants. We have other things that makes us happy, that makes who we are. It's always important to be emotionally ready for the commitment. Because once you sign that agreement of purchase and say to purchase, once you take on that mortgage, it's now your sole responsibility. And now real estate is not, which is what we talked about, it's not as flexible. It's not something you get in today and say, oh my God, nobody told me this is what I want to deal with. You know what? I'm selling it next week. Now, it's not that easy because you have to break the mortgage commitment, which can come with FT fees. Because when you're signing the mortgage, you're signing into terms. They're 1 year term, 2 years term, 5 years term, right? So and they expect you to keep to those term agreements. When you break them, they'll charge you the penalty. When you're selling real estate, you need real estate agent service. Someone like me, there are fees implications to that as well. So it won't be very realistic that you're buying, you get into it, you purchase it, you now get to find out the reality, and you want to sell in 3 months, you have to incur those costs. And at the end of the day, if you have to sell for the same price, that means you have to pay all those costs from pockets, which can actually wipe out your down payment or even more, right? So it's good to be emotionally ready with other things too. Do you want to move to new area? Are you ready for the major change and all of those things? So all of those you have to put them into consideration before you make that decision. Please, if you have questions at any time, please put it in the chat. I would love to answer them at the end of my slides. Now, the common mistakes first-time home buyers make. Making an informed decision when you're buying is very good, but we also make informed decision, make informed decision. What can help you make informed decision is getting to know a lot of these things because it helps you to ask the right questions too. Majority of the bad experiences with real estate is because buyers are not asking the right questions. Then the real estate agent or whoever they were working with too, they don't see it as their responsibility to explain each steps and things that they need to know. And when you sign the APS and get your mortgage document, then reality kicks in like, oh, if I'd known, maybe I should have waited like 6 months, right? Maybe I should have asked for this. So it's important you know all those things when you're getting to home ownership. Yes, after buying your first home, a lot of things you get to know, you don't make the same mistakes. But we don't have to get it wrong the first time as well. So it's important to know all of these things. The first thing I always tell people when you're after being emotionally ready is one of the major mistakes is people not getting pre-approved. Unless you have all the money to buy, okay? You're buying $400,000 and you have that sitting in your account. Maybe this does not apply to you, but if you're going to get a mortgage from the bank, you need to get pre-approved first. Because the reality is the bank actually owns the house if they're paying more than you. Okay, so if you're putting a fraction down, you need to go to who is putting down the most money first and say, hey, can you give me confirmation that you're going to give me this money and let me know how much you're giving me because I need to use this to go shop for the house, right? Or to create that expectation of what I'm buying. So that is super important. Not working with a buyer-focused realtor. Yes, a lot of realtors, but we all have areas of specialties where we're good at, and we are good at different areas because these are things that we've done repeatedly, and now you've structured your business. So working with a buyer-focused realtor means they've probably been in the same situation a lot of time, and they'll be able to, to protect you the right way. So after getting pre-approved, I always advise people, maybe you want to get pre-approved first before you even identify the realtor. I think why you communicate with your realtor first is if you want to get recommendation of mortgage brokers on, to or for the mortgage. After getting a not getting a buyer focused realtor is understanding total monthly cost. People ignore this. People, most of the time, they focus on credit. Now I've gotten pre-approved. I have the down payment. But the monthly cost, yes, there are other monthly costs that applies to when you own property that you don't pay when you're renting. Okay, because now it's not your responsibility. So it's good to know all of that. I'm going to touch on that too. Skipping the home inspection. Real estate is a very, very expensive purchase, super expensive. Okay, so it's just like going to buy a car. A lot of time people go buy a car and they do inspection, they do all of that and get the certificate because it's also mandated. But in real estate, home inspection is not mandated. Okay, it's not mandated. Bank will not mandate or we have to do inspection before we give you the money. They expect you that you're taking on such major risk to carry out the home inspection and you're paying for it. It costs range from $300 to $500. What that means is you and your realtor, you've drafted the agreement of purchase and say to purchase the house, and you have particular time to carry out the inspection. So you need to put the clause, your realtor needs to put the clause in the agreement that we're going to carry out home inspection within 5 days. Then you're going to pay an inspector to go to the house and inspect the property. They'll inspect the roof, the electrical, the furnace, the AC, everything in the house just to make sure that you're taking on a good property. Yes, there will be some cases where there will be repairs that needs to be made. Then you can go back to the drawing board and have that conversation with the seller. You guys can, both of you can come into conclusion of who takes care of what and how it's being taken care of, right? So you have a clear expectation. We had a very crazy market back in from 2020 to 2022 that the market was really crazy. It was completely seller's market where people are overbidding for houses, and at that time people were buying homes without putting home inspection. And sellers know this. They know that, oh, because it's very competitive, they're getting 5, 6, 7 offers on one property. Things that they're supposed to repair 6 months before they put their house on market, majority of them, they don't repair it. They just paint it, they hide it. So we call it latent effect. Things you can see with your eyes, they're behind the walls. But when you go to the house, you're looking at the kitchen, you're looking at the flooring, things that you can just see. But there's so many things behind their eating that you can't see, and it takes an inspector to find that out, right? But they know they're like, okay, they're not going to see it anyways, and there won't be inspection clause. People are now taking on $1 million properties, hundreds of $1,000 properties, later getting to find out that, wow, I have to repair this and it costs $5,000, $6,000. So imagine you putting a lot of down payment down, closing costs. Now you now get a mortgage and not having to spend extra on those things, right? It can be a lot, right? Some people get lucky, nothing was wrong with the houses, but if it happens to you, you have to take care of it because now it's your property. Okay, so you can avoid that by just spending that $300-400 upfront to inspect the home, and that will give you clarity if you want to move ahead with that purchase or you want to find another property. The fifth one is ignoring location and long-term potential. The average of first-time home buyer keeping the same property in Canada is 5 years. Based on stats, the most common is people within 5 years, they sell their current property or they rent it out to go to buy a different property, whether they're upsizing or downsizing. So it's important to think long-term. Okay, when you're buying your first property, you need to, like, this is what I tell a lot of our buyers, you need to think like an investor when you're buying your first property. Be an investor and think that way because that influences your decision on what location are you buying, even if that location works for you presently, but you know that it's just unique to you, tailored to you. How about when you want to rent it out? Will it be attractive, to a lot of people, to a lot of rentals? Or if you want to sell, will people prefer that location, right? Or the size of homes? And I'll give a bit of context to that. A lot of times, we see people that the same amount of money that they could have used to buy a 3 bedroom, they want to use it to buy the same amount to buy a 2 bedroom in the same location just because the seller decided to do some cosmetics and some finishings that are very fancy, right? You can change, most of them can change 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms, right? But you can spend extra thousands of dollars on the 3 bedrooms to make it to the same level of finishing, right? So things like that is very crucial because a 2 bedroom and a 3 bedroom will probably rent more, right? Than the 2 bedroom in the same location with the same structure. So you just have to think long term because at one point you want to rent out that property or sell it. Hardly will you find someone buy their first property and stay there for 25 to 30 years. Okay, so it's good to keep that in mind when you're buying. Now, the eating cost that's got a lot of people surprised after they close their home and they start paying those fees after 1 month, 2 months of getting home ownership. Before that is the closing cost, which is the legal cost. When you're buying a home in Canada, even if it's a private purchase between brothers and sister or between friends, you'll still need a lawyer to close the deal, right? In the state, they call them escrow. Here, we call their closing lawyer and they have to be paid, right? On the average, I do say it will cost you between $1,200 to $2,000 to pay a lawyer, depending on how fancy their office is. That's what I tell people. Depending on how fancy their office is, will determine how much they charge you. But I'll say budget between $1,200 to $2,000 for a lawyer fee when you're buying your property. And the next is the land transfer tax. I'll show you a calculator on how to calculate the land transfer tax. Land transfer tax depends it depends on the province where you're buying. If you're buying in Alberta, there's no land transfer tax. Other than you paying your lawyer fee, you're clear to close. But if you're buying in Ontario, if you're buying in Vancouver, yes, BC, you're their land transfer tax implication. What that means is our big brothers with the government, they're charging us taxes on the current owner transferring the title of that home to your name. So you now own the land, right, of that home. So you have to pay taxes for that. Okay. Plus, after that, you have to factor in your title insurance because you need to insure the title of the home. So, because you're buying a home of $500,000, which is a huge purchase, you need insurance on the title. Bank wants you to get insurance on the title in case if something is wrong with the title, they're covered. It's not a lot of money. You're probably looking at between $750 to $1,000. So the lawyers will charge you for that. So that goes on top of your legal cost. The appraiser too. Sometimes bank wants you to carry out appraisal on the property because they want to make sure that the value of the home you're buying is it's worth the current market price. And this is very important. Yeah, they're giving you most of the money, but they want to make sure it's $600,000. You've decided to pay $600,000. Does the house actually worth $600,000 in today's market? So that's what appraiser takes care of, just to make sure that you're buying at the right price. And it costs average of $500. Okay, so these are the costs before closing. Now, after closing, what are other costs that you'll be responsible for? You have property tax. Property tax, they charge you quarterly, right? And this amount shows on every listing that you see. Any listing on the market do have their annual property tax. It, it varies. It's lesser with condos and it's higher with homes, right? Single homes. So it could range from 1,800 up to $10,000 depending on how expensive the home is or how big it is. Again, these are the taxes they use for schools and parks and to take care of that the municipal use for other amenities we enjoy in the area. So it's been passed on to homeowners, and you can decide the best way to pay this is to pay monthly. So what we do with a lot of our clients is if it's 3,600 annually, you divide that by 12 and you pay $300 every month, and you pay that to the city. Okay, so if you're in city of Brampton, you pay to city of Brampton. If you're in Toronto, you pay to city of Toronto. The next is insurance. Home insurance, this is a no-brainer. If you're investing in such expensive assets, you want to insure it. Okay, and banks do mandate this if you're taking mortgage that you should have your insurance in place on closing because they know once you close. Now, if you cancel the insurance, then that's on you because you must have provided them the certificate of insurance on closing, and they expect you to keep to it. So that will cost you, depending on the type of home, you're looking between $50 up onto $200. Okay. So depending on the type of home, the size, the price of home, right? So these are another thing to factor in. This is about average of $7,500, but it adds up, and it's good to know all of these costs upfront. Now, the maintenance and repair cost, it will be hard to put an amount to this because it depends on how you uphold these things, how you maintain. There are a lot of things that you can prevent if you keep maintaining it. So you keep, you prevent them from breaking down, then you don't have to repair and spend more money. But there are a lot of things that you have to maintain in the homes. You have to change the air filter in the house I'll say every 3 months to 4 months. That doesn't cost a lot, but it's something you have to keep with. You have to make sure that there's no water leakage, looking at, checking your faucet out at all times to make sure they are not leaking. There are a lot of things to maintain in the home just to make sure everything is in good working order so you don't have to repairs. You have to check your windows at all time. You have to, the roof. The roof is another thing. It takes about 20 years span. So when you are buying a home and the home is not brand new, you want to know when last they changed the roof and to check the life expectancy of that roof. Sometimes people buy homes that is 19-year or 18-year old. What that means is that roof only has 2 years left. So after you purchase, you have 2 years to change the roof. And it could cost between about $7,500 to $15,000, depending, right, on how big the roof is. And utilities. Just the same way, I think for utilities, it's pretty standard because when you're renting, you get to pay utilities as well. It all depends on consumption. But again, you have to also plan for that. So those are the before and after cost when you're buying real estate. Now, if all of that sounds good to you and say, oh, you know what? Yes, I still want to buy real estate because of all of the advantages that comes with it, because there are a lot of them, then an average time to plan is 12 to 36 months into it. So you give yourself a lot of time, to prepare, which is set a monthly savings goal because you need a down payment and you need the emergency funds and closing costs. You need to meet with a mortgage advisor that will tell you what you qualify for. Okay. You need to build your and improve your credit. If you already have excellent credit, you want to continue to maintain that. You need to get clarity on the ideal location and property type. Okay, if it's downtown, can I afford here or should I look elsewhere? If I have to look elsewhere, is this somewhere I would like to live in, especially if you have families. So now it's not just you now. You have to look into like each school rating, right? What are the parks around? How secure is the area, right? So there's so many things you need to look into, right? Which takes time for you to do all of these findings, right? So you don't just make a decision and once you make that decision again, it's not that easy and flexible for you to say, I just want to sell and move on. Then within that time, you also want to hire a buyer agent for planning and market education. Planning of, okay, this is the locations I'm looking to. Is there any other location that looks, that you can compare to this location that, I would love to live that you can offer that we can both do research on and see if it's a good option. You just want to know all the options that are available to you, and it takes time for you to look into that. So that's the advantage of building, having 12 months to 36 months for you to plan ahead before buying your first home. Now, other things to avoid when you're planning to buy real estate, making a big purchase or taking new debt that will affect your qualification, not reviewing your credit report. Yes, you might actually have a good credit, but sometimes you have that delinquency or you have that missed payment of Rogers that is just even $10 or $15, but because you couldn't come to an agreement and you feel like it's unjust, but you know what, it goes on your credit. And majority of the time, bank's position is if we cannot manage a phone bill of $60, even though you earn $100,000, why should they entrust us with other people's money of $500,000, right? We always have reasons for things, but from bank perspective, it's all business, right? And it has to make sense to them because we're dealing with other people's money. So you want to continue to review your credit report to make sure that it's clean and clear and it won't count against you when you're buying. Another mistake is actually assuming that you need 20% down, right? Because Grace had to put 20% down, that doesn't mean you have to put 20% down. Like I said, you can put as low as 5%, but it all depends on your income and the purchase price. Okay. Fourth is ignoring government incentives. I think we're also in that era now where there are a lot of government incentives that you can take advantage of. There are RSP, you have first time home buyer savings plan. There are some towns that actually helps that gives you part of your down payment, right? When you want to buy. So there are a lot of government incentives that you can, do research online and see which one you can take advantage of. Uh, Most of the time they're actually beneficial. Another one is they help you to build your basement, right? At 2% and you pay back over 10 years. I think it's a no-brainer because you can build income generating basement. So there are a lot of that available that you can take your time to research and see how if that option is good for you. Not getting pre-approved, we already touched on that. I think this is the third time I'm touching on that. And it's not just because it's really, really, really important, right? Using all your savings for down payment. What that does is it affects your emergency fund. Emergency fund is not what you build after purchase, it's what you set aside before purchasing. So if you have to collect all your savings, that means the emergency fund is not there, right? Relying on online estimate alone, yes. So these have actually got a lot of people out of the market because they want to do, self-evaluation, which is great, but you definitely need someone who is in the market, whether a mortgage broker or real estate agent, that can actually tailor that down to you. Most of these websites like Zillow, that'll give you estimated mortgage payment. There's so many things they don't factor in that some of them doesn't even apply to you in some cases. So when you get those information online, I think they're great. It's a starting point for a conversation. You now want to speak to a professional to validate it and see how that affects you. So that is really important. And the last one is delaying because of market fear. Okay. The biggest fear in the market is created when in times like this, when everything is slow and people are like, oh, I don't want to buy because there's no frenzy. People are not buying. Why are they not buying? It doesn't make sense then. Real estate, I know there are a lot of emotions too. You want to buy a beautiful home, you want to live in a place with a family, but it's also business. We have to think about it. We have to think approaches as business. Now the market is slow. Could that mean that you're going to get better deals? Right? So those are the questions you need to ask instead of being scared. And major reason why a lot of people are scared also is because of the knowledge gap, not understanding, are not getting enough information. And that's why I'm happy I'm happy with what we're doing today, where we can share a lot of information, ask questions, and get ourselves informed. Because what that does is validates whatever you're thinking and give you option of what is possible and the reality in the market space, right? So please always try to engage, have professionals in your corner that you can always engage and ask questions. Because anything you see on the headline, it's probably strategic position for clicks, or yes, it might be something that's happening in the market. But again, anything that makes the news, trust me, it's already happening, right? It's not new. And you might want to do further, you want to add further questions for you to understand it better. Now, if you want to, you now want to move forward, you find that yes, real estate is a good thing for me, which I think it's good, whichever way you want to take it, whether you want to buy elsewhere to rent it or you want to live there. But again, it takes planning. Now, these are the steps to work with our team. And I would expect any other real estate agent to go through this process. But this is how we take it from initial conversation to drive it to the end goal and you having a great experience when you're buying your home, whether you're buying your first home or you're buying another investment property. Is the consultation. People do the initial consultation because they just want to have an idea of what they're getting into and get mortgage referral. We're referring them to a mortgage specialist and just telling them the options they have if they want to go into the bank or work with a mortgage broker. From there, they have to get mortgage pre-approval. Okay, mortgage pre-approval to get clarity of what you qualify for. Next, once they get the mortgage pre-approval, once you get it, we now do customized property search within that mortgage approval. Another important thing is if you're approved for 700,000, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to buy $700,000. Okay, but it just helps you to know that I can go past this amount. Okay, then the next is showing an evaluation. Now, once you get those property search, that will be sent to you almost every day as they come available. Next is evaluating those houses and say, okay, if this is good for you, why is this better than the other? Once we're able to identify and create a list of those properties, the next is to go do showings. All right, showings is when you go into the property, have a feel of it, have a feel of the area, and see if that works for you and your family. If that is a yes, what we do most times is because we might tend to see a lot of property, let's say you're going out to see 5 properties, we have a form where we put all properties and we identify the key things that you like most about those properties. We send them to you. When you get them, you evaluate it and make a list. Your top preference, your second one, and we make offers accordingly. Offers is when we draft an agreement of purchase and sale to put forward your intention to purchase the property. And what it entails is the purchase price that you want to pay for it, which we're going to advise you on the recent houses that has been sold, what price they sold for, and why the price you're putting forward is good. Your deposit, which is how much you want to put down along with the offer, which is the deposit you're making. On the average is about 3 to 5% that you put down as deposit. That's why it's important you should have saved before putting in an offer. And the third is, when do you want to close? Okay, when do you want to close on the property? Right? If it's 2 months or 3 months, average is 3 months, but sometimes people want to close in 4 months and some people want to close in 1 month. And we send it to the other agent, they present to the seller, and if that is accepted, in the offer we put conditions where we have the due diligence and condition, which is the inspection condition I spoke about in the previous slide, and also we put financing condition because mortgage pre-approval is not enough. It's just to give you an idea of what you qualify for. You still have to put a condition that once this offer is accepted, I need to take the agreement to the bank or the lender for them to now give a final approval that yes, we like the property, we like the price that you purchased for now. This is the final approval. You can go ahead and close. And that gives you the surety that they will provide the money on the closing date. Okay. And the last is after sale support. Once you close the house, there's still a lot of things that you still need to stay in touch with to one of it is how you move all your utilities, how you register all your utilities account, what time do they come together to take the waste and things that you need to get. So we're able to help with all of that to make sure that after you close, you're not just left alone. And if you have other questions of referrals for contractors, repairers, those things that just make you settle easy into your new home, into the new area, so you can have a good experience. Now, I'll run through this quickly. If you want to take a photo, you can. This is just going into the numbers of what it looks like in numbers when you purchase a home for 550,000, especially pick a property in Pickering, right? This is a live listing. Okay, so if this sells for $550,000, what is the most minimum down payment you need is 5%, and that comes to $27,500. Okay. If you get the mortgage for 30 years amortization, 30 year amortization means how long it takes you to pay back the loan. 5 years term, which is the term where you have to renew the mortgage. You could do 3 years, but for the purpose of this conversion is I put 5 years, and the average rate right now, if you're doing an insured mortgage, is 3.9%. A good website for you is Rate Up. It helps you to see the breakdown of all of these numbers. Okay. At 3.9 for 550 purchase and 5% down, your monthly mortgage is $2,400. Now, this is the property tax I spoke about. So this comes to about $3,800 annual, but when you divide by 12, it gives you this monthly. Now, this is a condo townhouse, so it has a maintenance fee of almost $300. Now, your total monthly cost comes to this. Okay. Now, if you have to rent the same property, you're going to pay less, which is $2,700. Okay, which is $2,700, and that you're paying $400 more than you renting the house. But check in 5 years, this is how much you would have paid in principal. Principal portion means when you pay $2,400 every month, part of this goes as interest, which is 3.9 interest rate, and part of it goes into your principal, which is the balance that you have with the bank. So in 5 years, you would have paid $50,000. Okay. This is the interest portion. This is the cost to borrow, cost of borrowing that the bank takes for you for borrowing this, the purchase price, the loan that you get once you purchase. Estimated home value. If houses go up by 5% in a good market every year, the value is expected to be around this number. If it's the current market that we have now for the past 2 years hasn't gone up, it won't get to this if it falls within that 5 years. Now, if it's a standard market and it goes up by 5%, this is the equity you would have gained because we added the 50,000 to the about $150,000 in property appreciation. This is what you, on the average, you expect to get in a normal market, okay, where it's going up by 5%. If it goes up by 4%, that comes down. If it goes up by 3%, that comes down. If it doesn't go up at all, it affects it, right? Now, if you're renting for 2.7, this is what you would have paid in 5 years, right? And this is where it's important. It doesn't mean, oh, I need to buy because I want to make this. You can also buy and not live there and still be able to profit this, okay? You can buy, not live there, and still be able to profit it because someone is paying your mortgage anyways, right? So this is what it looks like if you see people buying houses and you must have it. Oh, most billionaires, they own real estate. This is the reason why they do it. And They're only able to make it because they purchase what they can afford to carry even in a bad market. People only get affected by, oh, it's a bad market, is because they want to sell in that market. If you're not selling in that market, you purchase something that is affordable. If it takes you 10 years, it takes you 10 years, right? Nobody will compare you to sell what you have, right? So this is what it looks like in numbers and why you see people that have done it right in real estate. This is how it works for them, okay? And what this means is building equity through principal payment because you're paying your mortgage down every month, gaining appreciation, which is whatever percentage it goes up depending on the province and the type of property, and creating stability while avoiding raising rent and move out. Now, questions. I know I've been speaking for almost almost an hour now, and yes, that is what it looks like if you want to buy real estate or invest in real estate, or maybe if you want to rent and taking advantage of renting, right, on how it can actually benefit you over time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Richard. That was great. We got a lot of questions. Are you ready to answer them?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, first question. Do you give guidance or help people run the numbers if they're interested in real estate investing? So let's say they don't want to live in the house, but they just want to buy it and they also want to make sure it'll be a profitable venture. Does your company help run those numbers?
Yes. So we are investor focused. We work with a lot of investors actually. We've helped our investors to own even multiple properties, but we create that from the first property. Okay. So we do have such conversation when they're starting. How does it make sense to them? They don't have to live there. We run the number in terms of income to mortgage. And what if your tenant doesn't even pay for 2 months? Is it something? Because if your tenant doesn't pay, it becomes your responsibility now, right? So we have to plan all of that. Yes, we do help with that, but there'll be some point of that where we're going to need a mortgage. We're going to need a mortgage specialist. Okay, we can run the numbers in terms of numbers and all the investors that we work with, but we don't approve mortgages, right? But we have a mortgage specialist from BMO in our team that we work together, and that's another added value that we can provide. So yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question. What you mentioned tapping into the equity of a property. So can you explain what that actually means?
Okay, great. So what that means is, and I'll just throw out numbers, right? So if you purchase a property today in today's market for $500,000, okay, and let's say it goes up by 5% every year, and by the next 3 years, it has gone up by compound about $70,000, right? Or it has gone up to in 5 years to 600K. Now you purchased the property at $500,000, and you did put down 10% at the point of purchase, which means you owe the bank $450,000. But the property value after the appraisal was done was 600,000. Now you have $150,000 there. You can go to the same bank and say, hey, I have $150,000 in my property. I need some money, right? Depending on what you want to use it for. Now, you have to refinance the property. Refinancing means you're increasing your loan, not just free money, right? Because people say that if it's free money, I just tap into equity and move on. No, you're increasing your loan from 450 now to, if they give you $50,000, that means your loan will move from 450. You would have paid the mortgage down by 25K. So maybe you're at 425 at that point. And you take 50,000, your loan jumps from 425 to 475 now. Okay. But at least you have access to that 50,000. That's why we advise people that when you take equity on your home, it's not what you take to just go venture into something else that will not make you money. Maybe you just find another investment that will make you more. And if you're like, you know what, I need money, then you can tap into equity and go reinvest it somewhere else. So that's what it means by tapping into your equity. It's just the appreciation and the mortgage you pay down and you taking part of that.
Perfect. That was great explanation. So basically, everyone, if you currently have, like, I have a rental property that I bought for $345,000 in 2020. Now it's actually around $650,000. So I could go and say, okay, I want to refinance my mortgage. I want to take out a loan for more than what I currently have, which I'm not doing. But if I wanted to, I could say I wanted to take a $100,000 loan, and I could use that 100K to now put it onto another property and buy another property. So that's what real estate investors often do. They consistently refinance their properties, and then they're able to basically use the old property to buy the new property.
Yeah.
But as Richard said, we need to make sure we understand that it is a loan. It's not just free money that you're taking. So make sure if you're going to do that, you're putting it into a profitable venture, not just anything for just to take out money from your property. Okay, next question for you, Richard, was do you assist people outside of Ontario or only in Ontario?
Great question. So we have quite a big team, but we only cover on ground, Ontario and Alberta, right? But because we partner with EXP, now we have partners we just opened up the partnership in New Brunswick area, and we have partnership in Ottawa. We do Ontario anyway, so Ottawa is part of where we cover. Then we have partnership in BC. Those are just the area. BC and New Brunswick, the partnership for us covering the ground, personally ourselves, is Ontario and Alberta.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next one is how do we find out how much house we qualify for? Like, what is the process like when you're getting that pre-approval?
Okay, great. So how to qualify if you qualify for, personally, I know how to run it, but I would not advise that because things keep changing, from the bank end, right? So what you need to do is speak to a mortgage specialist, okay? And this is what we do, okay? What we advise our clients is you can speak to a mortgage broker and speak to a specialist from the bank as well. Because you want to stay competitive, right? You want them to stay competitive. You want to compare rates. So you probably have a bank that where you bank. I'm sure they offer mortgages, right? Or speak to the mortgage specialist there, see what they call it. But tell them, don't run the ad check. Don't let them run ad check if you're not ready. Okay, let them just tell you, okay, this is your income, what are your debts, and they give an idea of what you qualify for. Now, if you're sure that it's something you want to do in 6 months, then let them run the application, okay, to have a pre-approval. You can take that to a mortgage broker and say, okay, this is what I have pre-approval. Can you beat it? Right? Because for us, at the end of the day, yes, we have mortgage specialists we work with, but at the end of the day, it still have to be about the client, right? How can you save money? How can you get the best rate? Okay, so whether you get the best rate or bad rate, you're still paying a lot to the bank. Okay, so getting a better rate is always good, but how you get to know that is speaking to a mortgage specialist, whether someone from the bank or an independent mortgage broker.
Perfect. And yeah, I actually went through this process recently, well, kind of, but I would say basically what you do is you go there and they ask you a few questions. They're asking like, what's your credits? They ask for your credit score. They can sometimes, I think if you have a credit card with them, they can see what your credit
Yes.
score is, right? And then they ask for like, what else? Like pay stubs and just to verify your income, basically. And then they tell you, okay, based on this, and based on how much you have saved for the property, this is how much we're going to lend you. This is not an official,
Yes.
like they don't run a hard check on your credit at this point. But as Richard said, if you're closer to the deadline, let's say you're 6 months out, 3 months out, of course, then you actually need firm numbers on what they will give you. So then they have to run a credit check. But I think for anybody, no matter what stage you are in your buying journey, even if someone asks if they want to buy in like 36 months, should they do this pre-approval? I think it's worth it to do it. What do you think, Richard?
I think you worth it. I think it's worth it. But again, it's just also what would have changed for you in 36 months? Okay. Are you changing your job? Right. So if you know that you're not going to be in the same job and income will not change, I think it's worth it. Just if you know that all of that will change, maybe just go in there and say, this is what I make. Just give me an idea of what I qualify for. So when I go on Zolo, I'm not checking $1 million property. I'm
Yeah.
checking just 600,
Yeah.
500. But when you now get closer to it, then speak to a mortgage specialist, whether from the bank or independent, and say, okay, do an actual um, approval for me now. I
Yeah.
want to pull all my credit. Let me see what I can qualify for. Because sometimes, Rainy, this is what people don't know. Sometimes you have some 2,000, 300,000 or 2,000, 3,000 loan that you don't even need to pay them off when you're buying. Okay, because you still qualify, maybe that could go towards your down payment. So you can
Mhm.
increase your down payment and you can always pay that off little by little. So getting clarity once you're closer to it, then running actual pool is very important, but maybe when you're 6 months out.
Yeah. And I think, again, for the person who's 36 months out, I think it makes you as Richard said, what's the difference between now and 36 months from now? At the end of the day, you probably, well, we don't know your situation, but it may be pretty similar, right? So you might as well just run the numbers and see how much you can afford now. Of course, and this also informs how you save over the next few
Yes.
36 months, right? Maybe you're saving $500 a month thinking, oh, by 36 months it'll be fine. But maybe you actually need to save $1,000 a month, So that will help guide your saving process as well. Okay. Another question for you was does income here, when you're referring to income that they'll use to qualify you, does income include any side hustles that you bring along? So maybe, yeah.
Good question. Good question. So yes, there's some income that they're applicable. They can actually use them depending. But it has to be registered. They have to be registered business, right? And if it's a side also, how are you paid? If it's more of contract or they're not taking out the taxes, now you need to be in that side also for 2 years because you should have filed. They will expect you to have filed 2 years taxes, and they'll pick the average, right? So there are a lot of freelance job because those jobs are not full time and they are not full time, so they can't just pick random numbers. We all know that those jobs sometimes you make X amount is not guaranteed the following month, and it could be more, it could be less. So for bank to take that comfort position, they will expect you to be in that job for 2 years, or you should have that side also for 2 years, and they'll pick the average. So if it's 15,000 the first year, 15,000, 20,000 the second year, that's $35,000. So they're able to pick 17,500. So it's applicable, but it has to be registered business, and they will need 2 years of income or revenue from that business.
Yeah, they really want to know the source of the income and if it's coming on a regular basis. Because as a freelancer, sometimes I've made $10,000 a month, sometimes you make $2,000 a month. If they qualify you as if you're making 10K a month every single month, then they're giving you more money than you can actually afford on a regular basis. Okay, next question. Is it more advisable to purchase below your pre-approval amount? And if so, is that even feasible in this market? So let's say I'm pre-approved for $500,000. Should I be buying less, basically at less than that?
Honestly, it's always advisable to buy less, but again, how realistic is that, right? So I like the later part of the question. So how realistic is that? So you have to translate that to the market that you're buying from, right? If I'm qualified for 500,000, it would be nice to buy 200,000, but can you get $200,000 in that market, right? So if it's obtainable in the market, it's better to buy less. Okay. But again, buying less also dictate the type of property you're buying. Okay. So there will always be property for each, for every price point. But the question is that the type of property that works for you? If you have a big family, we all know that you probably need more than one bedroom or two bedrooms, right? So if you're buying three, four bedrooms, it comes at a cost, right, for the same location. So it's more of the market again. When you're working with a real estate agent, they'll be able to advise you, okay, if you're looking at this type of property, these are the price range in this area. If you don't qualify for that price range, if you want to buy way lower than your qualification, then maybe you have to go 30 minutes, 45 minutes out. Can you handle the commute? Do you have Go Station there? Do you have transit that will connect you to your job or other places that you have engagement with? So speaking with an agent on that would be really important. It's also a service that we can definitely render.
Perfect. Another question. Does pre-approval expire?
Yes. It does expire. It does expire average of between 3 to 9 months. Again, you have to communicate that to the lender and say, hey, I want it for 6 months. I'm planning to buy in 6 months. They can give you now. BMO, again, other banks does this too, RBC as well. You can get a firm approval that lasts for 3 years, but only on new constructions. Okay, this is a new program that they've launched because they want to give people peace of mind because of what has happened in the market over time. Where when you buy into new construction, average of new construction, if you're not buying condos, takes between a year to 2 years. Okay, so now they give 3 years firm commitment approval, which means if they approve you for 700 for that particular property, now you have a property address on the approval now, it will last you for 3 years. Even if the market crash and it's 500, it's 500 now, they will still fund at that particular price. So only on that case where you've made the actual purchase, you can get up to 3 years. I only know BMO and RBC for now. Maybe other banks have started doing it. Uh, yeah, so that would be 3 years. But if you've not purchased, it will only cover you between 3 months and 9 months, but you need to ask for it. You need to ask for it how long you want it for.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for sharing. Okay, guys, remember, you guys asked a lot of questions, so I have them all on the list. I am answering them, but it'll take some time to get to your question. Okay, next question for you, Richard, is how does your credit score affect your interest rate? I know you're not the mortgage broker specifically, but would there be like a huge difference between someone with a 750 credit score versus an 800, for
Well,
example?
I'll tell you for a fact. To be honest, once you cross the benchmark, it's not a lot of difference.
Okay.
But once you cross the benchmark of 680, it will just be slight, slight difference. Where it makes a lot of difference is when it now dictates the type of lender you're getting. Okay. So once you cross 680, bank will view you differently. Even if you have excellent credit, to be honest, yes, they might give you some exception, just some basis points. It won't be a lot, but it's something over 30 years. Okay. It's still something. But where it makes a lot of difference is when you have, let's say, 610, 620, where the A banks now say, nah, we are not comfortable, but there's still option for you. You can get a B lender. B lender are alternative lenders where they are just in mortgage business. Okay, they're just in mortgage business. When banks are giving 3.94%, 4.2 now, with B lenders, you're looking the I5s, like 5.7. So you see now you have 1.5 basis point. That's huge now. Okay, but once you're 680 bacon upward, it's not a lot of difference, but the stronger your credit, the better for you because when you put those numbers, even $10 every month over 30 years is a lot of money, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, very true. Next question was, how do we find a home inspector?
Great. So we have home inspector we work with, but now the reality is we have people that based on affordability, they buy in different places. We always prefer to use local home inspectors. So if you're buying, for example, now after Berry, we don't have home inspector everywhere. We have a very popular company that we work with that are very reputable and they're in a lot of locations, but there are also some locations that they don't cover. What we always advise our clients is we go on Google, we find the biggest home inspector company there, we check their review, but we want to make sure they are local and they've been in the business for a very long time, right? That's our own strategy and it has worked a lot of time because why that is important is if they give you a report that is not matching what the property, you can always go back and say, why did you put it, if there's any discrepancy. Okay. So big companies with a lot of reviews and they have reputation at stake, they are always very, very careful of the report. They will tell you everything that is wrong with the property because they don't want you to come back just for $300, $400. They won't want to put themselves under water. So that's the strategy that we use.
Okay, and Sonia just asked, who bears the cost of the home inspector? So it's you as the buyer, correct?
So is you the buyer, but we have some generous sellers. Again, we don't feel comfortable with that. They do the home inspection ahead of time. But if they've used like a reputable company that you know that they are local and you can call them if you want to save the money, but I won't still advise it. I think it's worth $300, $400 for you to carry out your home inspection because now you are their client. But
Yeah.
when the seller carried out, they will just give you maybe overview of everything. But when you pay them, now you are their client and they're responsible giving you very like absolutely correct result.
Yeah. It's like if you buy a car from someone and they're like, yeah, don't worry, everything's good. I checked with the inspector. It's like, let me bring my own mechanic to check this out, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And another question was, if you put in an offer and you get a home inspector and the inspector finds issues, what what happens there? Can you cancel the purchase or do they have to fix it? What happens there?
So, can you cancel the purchase? Yes and no. Yes, if there are a lot of structural defects, right? And you just be like, you know what, this is too much for me to deal with. Even if you have to fix it, I know it won't be 100%, then you might as well just go find another property. But it has to be justifiable, not why is the bulb here not working? Door undo. Those minor things will not, again, if they involve their lawyer, I think they might have a case that what you're trying to push, then that's where they now start looking at there must be another reason. But if
Mm,
there are things that are justifiable, just like these are just major. I'm buying my first home and I don't, even if you have to repair it, I don't want to, because it's their own responsibility to
yeah.
repair it, right? And if they have to open the wall and do a lot of stuff that you don't feel comfortable with, and you're going by your inspector advice, yes, you can back out. And that's the reason for that condition that within 5 days, carry out a home inspection, put forward any anything you want to put forward for them to repair. But if it's something that you don't want to deal with, then you don't waive the condition. You let the 5 days pass and just give them a detailed report of these are the reason why I decided not to waive the condition because these things are major and I don't want to deal with it. So you back out and you get your deposit back.
Awesome. Okay, we have a few more. For the insurance, who slash what is insured? So we're talking home insurance. So the answer is the home is insured,
Yeah,
right?
the home insurance, yes. So home insurance was insured. Now the reason for the home insurance is not is the replacement cost for the bank. Now, if you're buying with less than 20% down payment, the replacement cost is on CMHC, the insured company. So you have an insurance company that insures the mortgage on the house. So in case of any default, they bear the loss. Okay. But when you put more than 20%, now it's more on your insurance company. But whether either of the two, you still need home insurance. Home insurance is because bank wants to make sure that if anything happens, they're not the one, they won't be responsible for any flood in your home. The insurance company have to be, responsible for the flood. If anything is wrong with the roof, if the house get burnt down, God forbid, the replacement cost will be on the insurance company. So you bear the monthly premium for that, and it's actually also for the homeowners good because if anything happens in the house, they will be able to come in and replace everything. You bear the cost, but part of the risk is you're taking off a lot of risk for the bank because they have a lot of money in your home.
Mhm. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, now a few questions about like FHSA, and a lot of people have questions about if they're getting married, what should they do? So, first one was, should I use my FHSA room for buying my house before I get married? So I can answer this. I don't know if you want to answer.
Okay, no, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, when it comes to your FHSA, let's say I have $24,000 in my FHSA because I've had it for the past 3 years, and then my future partner also has 24K. We can actually combine our FHSA room to purchase our first house, assuming that we both don't have a primary residence ourselves, because your FHSA can only be used for your primary residence. If let's say I lived in the house that I own right now, I would not be able to, my partner would not be able to use his FHSA room to buy our first house because it's a matrimonial home or whatever they call it. So if your partner does not have a house, I would say it's okay. But if they do have a house, then unfortunately you can't really use it for the home that you two are going to live in together. So if you buy the house before you guys live in that home, I guess it could be okay. What do you think?
Because you can have two matrimonial home at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And once you're married, they expect that whichever home you live in is your matrimonial home. So, um, yeah, it depends. You know your future plans better. Maybe it's closer than maybe it's closer if you know it's going to happen soon and the person already owned the property, or if again you I don't know. It's just but I would say if you don't have that plan yet, you can use it. Just use it because you're only sure of what you have now, right? So that's what I would say. I think it's advisable. But again, RSP is there too, right? You can also put in RSP, which is when you're buying your first home. So, um, but again, yeah, it all depends on how the married thing works and when you're getting married, and if the person, like Rennie said, if the person already owned the property, then that automatically becomes the primary. And now you won't be able to use it.
And also, if again, I think we should plan as if like you're not married yet, so do act as if you're not married yet, please. And if you do not end up using your FHSA room for a home, you can always transfer that money to your RRSP, right? So
Yes,
I
yes, yes.
think that's something to note as well. Okay, a few more questions. Okay, guys, I know you're asking more, but let's try and finish the ones we currently have. So also, what's the implication? What's the single income versus dual income implications when it comes to buying a first home? So I'm not
Um,
really sure.
okay, no implication. It just makes it stronger, right? So when two incomes, when you put two incomes together, yeah, it will probably be more and get you to qualify for more. I think it always also helps in the financial responsibility of the home because now you have more household income to be able to pay the mortgage, take care of the, utility bills and all of that. But on the face value, it helps you to qualify more. If one person makes 70, the other person makes 50,000, that's $120,000. You'll qualify for more than maybe just one income of $70,000, right? So there's no major implication. I think it just makes it stronger. Yeah, because bank now know that, okay, the household income is more, right? Now they can give you more money.
Basically. Yeah. Okay. Can you explain what it means to be house poor?
Ah, yes. Yes. So house poor is basically well, we call real estate investment. It can actually be an investment, but the thing is, it's not flexible for you taking money out, right? Now you've purchased real estate. You might actually even have a lot of equity, but now your financial obligation for carrying that mortgage is now even like almost like your income. So your mortgage is $4,000 and you hand $5,000. There are other things that you also need to pay for, right? Then every month is more of like a rat race. You're just, the money comes in and you're paying it out. Every other person is getting money, they're not you, right? You don't have savings. But oh, I have $300,000 in my home. It sounds great, right? But you don't have it available until you tap into the equity. And now that this is another important thing about equity. Tapping into equity is not just telling the bank, oh, I need money. They will check your income. Do you qualify for the new loan you're about to get? Okay. So if the income is not there, maybe your income actually, maybe you earn less than when you purchase the property. What happens is the equity stays in the house and you're unable to tap that equity. But you have the equity, right? It's in the house, but you're unable to access it now. But you don't have extra every month to take care of all the things. So that's what house poor is. Having a lot of equity, or maybe you don't even have equity, but you have real estate investment, and your income, all of your income just goes to satisfy the mortgage. That is not a good position to be in. Another thing that happens, a lot of people to what actually change on them is they bought real estate when interest rate was 1.7.
Mm.
Okay. And their mortgage payment in a month was like, let's say $3,000. 5 years term comes, they found themselves where they now have to renew. The new interest rate is now 5%, right? They were comfortable paying 3,000 because they earned $6,000. But now because of the new interest rate, the new mortgage amount is now $5,000. Now they only have $1,000 left for them to take care of all the things. Now they're going to be house poor, but they might have a lot of equity in the house. If they don't qualify to take equity, the only way you can take the equity is now for you to sell the property, right? So you get a lot of money, but now you now need to go buy another property, right? So that's my own understanding of being house poor.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone, you know how we've used a conscious spending plan to map out how much we can actually spend every single month, right? If your fixed expenses are more than that 60% mortgage plus everything else included, then you are you're probably house poor, right? They say that your house should not exceed 30%. I don't know how reasonable that is in Toronto, especially, or
Yeah.
high cost of living spaces, but yeah, you want to keep it very low, ideally, so that all your income is not going towards your house every single month.
And Rain, I just want to touch on this. Another cause of this for a lot of people is co-signing, right? So
Mhm.
you see people that they make X amount of money and they only qualify for $400,000, but they go buy a home of 600 because their mom can join them to qualify for the mortgage.
Yeah.
So what you've done, you've increased your month, but your mom doesn't put in money every month too to help you pay the mortgage. So now you've qualified for more, but do you have more income to pay monthly? No. So that's the thing about people just say, you know what, someone can co-sign for me to earn more, but that person also pitching some money every month to pay the mortgage. So you can have some money left every month. So co-signing is something that one have to also be careful of, just qualifying for more, but your income it doesn't increase to be able to carry the mortgage on every month.
Great point. Okay, what is a utility account? Because you mentioned that you would help them in your
Yeah. So you let's say you live in Toronto, you probably have utility account already. Even if you're renting, you register with Electra, Hydro, Enbridge, but you decide to now buy in London, Ontario. They have different companies that supplies electricity, gas, and water because water is majorly with the city. So what we do for you upon closing is sending you the links to their website, their contact number, forms to fill out so you can register the new account on your name. And they'll ask you when is your moving date. And you're able to put the moving date when you like your closing date, when you're closing the home, so they can register you and start sending you the utility bill. And at the same time, you have to do the same thing for your current place so you can close all the utility accounts.
Perfect. Next one, a house or a condo. I love the condo life, but sometimes the cost can be equal to the cost of a different house. What are the parameters to take account so I can get a good deal? I'm considering buying a condo first, but I'm not sure if it will be the best move.
So every every type of house serves different purpose, right? Again, I see people a lot of time people say, "Oh, condos are not good." I think they're also good, but again, it's not for everyone. So if you're buying and you know that you don't need a house, it's too big, it will be too big for you, you don't need such space. You can buy a condo, but you just need to know that, okay, what is the maintenance fee, right? Which is the major cost. Now, what people don't also look into is there are costs that comes with you buying a home that you will not pay the same with a condo. Okay, so you have a condo that maintenance fee costs like $500. If you go buy home, you have to shove to pack your snow. You have to be responsible for the lawn. If you can do that yourself, that's great. If you have to pay someone for that, that's extra cost, right? Condos comes with other amenities like gym room. Maybe that will save you $50, $60 if you go to the gym, right? Those are the costs that you need to factor in. If you can go to the pool, you have the party room that you have to pay if you have to book elsewhere. So it depends on your lifestyle. Now, this is the critical part. Homes are more expensive in the same location as condo. So that's the first establishment. If the condo, two-bedroom condo is 500,000 in a particular location, if you were to buy a home in the same location, you're probably looking at $800,000 upward. So it's more of what do you qualify for. But if you decide to go condo route, these are the things you should look out for. What is the maintenance fee and how fast are they going up? Okay. If you're getting to a $800 maintenance fee, what was the maintenance fee 2 years ago on how old is the property? If a 5-year-old property that started from $300 is already at $800 maintenance fee, I won't touch that because it will just keep going up. But we've seen buildings that have been up for 25 years and their maintenance will stay at 700. Not a lot of risk to that because that means it's not been going on a lot. You want to know, okay, this maintenance fee, what does it cover? So maintenance fee covers water, hydro, and gas. If you go buy home, you have to pay for those things too. Then you now get to know that, you know what, it kind of makes sense. So it's not bad. It's not bad. It's not a bad investment, but you just want to make sure what are the things that comes with the maintenance fee. And also you want to review there's something we call status certificate, which is the financial report of the condominium to see if they've gone to lawsuit or if there's a pending lawsuit that can potentially increase the maintenance fee. But those are the things we also highlight and take, look into when you're buying a condo.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, guys, we're just going to do two more questions because we're already way over time. And I know Richard has to go. So, if you do have more questions, his info is on the screen. And also, he has a free buyer's guide that you can scan so that you can get some more details. Okay, second last question. Is being a renter solely investing in the stock market versus owning and having rental income, does it come to having the same ROI? Which scenario is more beneficial investment wise?
I won't be able to speak on stocks, to be honest. I'm not a stock person, but we do have a lot of clients that invest in stock and they are doing great, right? I think whichever way you want to go, you just want to be really informed and calculate your risk. Okay. You don't just, again, my own definition is don't invest just because everyone is investing. You want to understand what you're investing in and do it with caution and clarity. Yeah, real estate is, again, people make a lot of money in real estate, but they only do that when they do it right. And I believe the same thing applies to stock. I don't know if anyone want to touch on the stock part.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. Like
Okay.
you can make great money. My dad always says there are so many ways to make money. There are lots of ways. You have to pick the one that aligns with your risk tolerance and the one that aligns with your long-term goals. Of course, the stock market is easier to access, right? You are able to go start with $1 and start investing in the stock market. Whereas with real estate, there's a higher barrier to entry, higher barrier to entry. But with real estate, the benefit is that you can have leverage, right? You're basically
Yes.
loaning money to invest, which is a lot different than investing in the stock market. So I think there are pros and cons of each. You can make money in each. I'm team stock market all the way, but yeah.
And you can do both,
Yeah,
right?
you can do
You
both.
can do both. When you have less money, you can do stock, and when you have like chunk that you now want something more rigid that you want to fill it and you want to be able to leverage, then maybe you can also do real estate. But I think both are great if you're able to match it and be informed on both wings.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, last question. Have you helped small investors leverage the CMHC MLI Select program? Would you recommend it for a multi-unit purchase?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love
What
that.
is
So,
that?
yeah, so CME Select for people that don't understand is yes, we have again, believe it or not, we still have out shortages. Is because it's not just affordable. That's why a lot of people are not buying now. If we have to bridge it by the number of population that we have, we're still far behind. We still need to build a lot of homes. They need to cut all the red tapes to build faster. So what the government actually put in place 2 years ago was they need more units in they need more units in the market for people to buy because when there are more units, it becomes more affordable. And government will not build any home personally. It's not been a great experience for the housing. People that are taking on housing now are people that shouldn't even take housing. People that need housing are not getting it, so they don't want to go that route. Now they want to break the monopoly of just builders building, bringing in the supply. They want investors that are interested to able to increase the supply. So that's where CMA, CMLI comes into place, which is easy financing for people that want to build homes more than 5 units. So they're willing to give you loan with less down payment, which could be as low as 5% for a house that has more than 5 units or 5 units or more. Higher amortization. When you're buying your primary residence, they only give you loan for 30 years. With MLI Select, it's range between 40 to 50 years. That means the monthly payment you're paying will be way less, right? So, and now income is not required. But the major thing that is required is asset qualification. They want to make sure that you have assets, and that's why a lot of first-time home buyers might not qualify for this because the asset qualification, you need 25% asset qualification of the purchase price. So if you're buying a 5 unit at one, let's say $1 million, you need to be able to show asset of $250,000. Not a lot of first-time home buyer have that. People that have that, people that they've invested in maybe stocks, they have bonds, or they've invested in real estate over time and build equity, then they will have 25% to show. Now, is it good for new investors? I think it's, again, by my own knowledge and standard, because we're doing it for quite a number of clients, I think it's the best way to for investors now to because you get easy entry and you're getting lower interest rates. You're putting less money down, and I just encourage that when and you're buying it on a corporation, right? So which is less risk as well. I just advise that if you're going into it, if it's possible to do with other people, so you can share the risk, share the reward. I think that might be a smart thing to do. It's actually a very good option for a lot of people if it's the space that you want to play.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering all of our questions. I know we asked a lot. Can we all give Richard some gratitude? You can unmute yourself and say, thank you, Richard. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and having the session with all of you. I hope you find it valuable. And Rennie, thank you for the invite. It's such a great time.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. We really do appreciate it. And if anyone wants to work with Richard, I've left his details in the chat and also leave them in school when you guys check out the replay. And also, I just want to say we have our next session next week, which is about investing in the stock market. So we're having lesson 3 of our investing series. So please come for that session. It'll be in depth. I'll answer all your questions about how to actually use your investing account. I think a lot of people are investing, but they're not using their investing account optimally. So we'll get into that as well. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. And I will see you on Thursday for our next session. Also book your one-on-one with me if you have not booked it yet. And last thing was we have Don't Go Broke Trying Toronto coming up soon, so come for that as well. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a
All
good
right. Thank
rest.
you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.